And we lost the chat list. Yeah. I think Alana, you're on mute.
Yep. Yeah, that sometimes happens in Teams. I'll tell you the things because I
Okay.
have a copy of it. So the first one, number 5, is reciprocity with neighboring states. I don't know if anybody has thoughts or ideas for reciprocity with neighboring states. Anybody have ideas about how to meet that need?
I guess it's more of a question of, I think I'm trying to remember exactly, is the idea to be able to issue across state lines? So if there's an event that happens in Washington, we can issue the record from Washington, or was it more just related to the services going back and forth? I guess that was the only one I really didn't know what it meant.
I think that was Lucy. Because Lucy, I
Okay.
remember you talking about challenges with California. Lucy, are you able to jump in and speak to that? And if I'm misremembering, please feel free to just tell me I misremembered it.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Chad that actually
Oh,
had
okay.
mentioned something about that. And he used the example of a death that happened out of state. The person is like a resident of Oregon, but the event happened out of state, the death or the birth or whatever. Um, and it was, how can we make it easier to work with Washington or Idaho or, any other state for that matter, to get those records to the right people, either the parents or if it's a birth or their surviving spouse, children, whomever needs it, to get that to whoever needs it in a
Yeah.
more timely manner.
Thank you, Lucy. You have a better memory than I do. I appreciate you jumping in with that. Yeah, so we might want to follow up with Chad and ask about that. Any other thoughts about that reciprocity with neighboring states?
I think it's just mostly if there's ideas on how we can better communicate, sharing, how do you get records from other states?
Right.
Because unfortunately there's the laws are that we can only issue records that occur in our state, and Washington can only issue records that occur in their state. So those are related to the individual laws. But it looks like Ginger might have a comment.
Yeah. Hi, Ginger.
Hi. So when I have had other agencies out of state, there's actually a form that I use. It's a verification of Oregon vital record facts for federal, state, and county government agencies. And they can request a birth, death, marriage, or divorce information. And it has to be faxed up to Portland. Um, but that's what I refer different agencies if they want some information. Like I'll get police officers from other states. I get welfare, like DHS from a lot of times, mostly California. But this is the form that I always send or email them so they can get what they need from the state. And I don't know if I can, it's form number 45-110, if that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thanks, Ginger. Okay, so can we go on to number 6? For all death certificates to be fully electronic. What are your ideas about how to meet that need?
I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah.
And I think it should not only be just death certificates. I think it's any of the vital records. Birth, like right now, for example, I am having a heck of a time with a new baby that was brought into care while he was still in the hospital. Mom has said that she filled out all of the vital stats paperwork for the birth certificate and social security number. We can't get we can't get Riverbend is the hospital. Still, this child was born almost 8 weeks ago, and nobody seems to know what's happened to that paperwork. That's just an example. It needs to be electronic.
Yeah. Thanks, Lucy. It's great to have an example.
Well, actually, in law, all births are in the hospitals are supposed to be fully electronic. So that's so Lucy, we need to follow up on that just to note that because that is actually written in law. I think that for deaths, it's law, which we don't currently have.
And thanks a lot for that, Jennifer, because I am working with the caseworker right now. We do not have legal custody of this
Mhm.
child. It's a cooperative in-home. So I
Mhm.
don't have a court order, so I can't contact the hospital.
Yep, but we
So the
can.
the caseworker, I actually sent in to CHS agencies a request, and Javier responded saying, "Oh, we don't have a request for this record." And I'm saying, "No, I was very specific in my email.
Yep.
We don't have a record in overs. I need to know, was the paperwork
Yep.
electronic, whatever, received?"
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's different
thank
group
you, Lucy.
and yeah,
We're-
so I'll follow up.
We'll follow up offline. Ginger?
Great.
So when you were talking about births, I get, and I don't know really what the process is, but I'll have funeral homes bring me in a fetal death record. It's not an electronic, it's a handwritten piece of paper that I'm supposed to hold for 6 months. It has the name of the child, where the child passed, the hospital. And when you're talking about electronic, would that seem a necessary thing? I'm not really sure what my piece is, except I'm given this paper. I hold it for 6 months. The parents sometimes choose to get a death certificate or they don't. But that's a piece I'm kind of curious about. And the other thing that when you're talking about fully electronic birth certificates, I mean, I know this has to do a lot with the affidavit of paternities pending. And I'm kind of jumping the gun on this, but about communication. They're really behind right now at the state. And I thought I'm waiting still on a birth from June 3rd. They need their insurance, just a communication. I thought all these things were lost in the mail, but there's other issues going on. So I guess I'm kind of, like I said, digressing here, but the fetal deaths, that I'm not really sure what that's supposed to look like electronically or otherwise. And then, the affidavit of paternity pending, it still seems so archaic that we're sending paperwork through the mail I don't know. I'm not actually helping right now.
Yeah, but it sounds like for you that having everything fully electronic is a need. Like
I
that.
believe so. Yes, it would.
Yeah. Yeah. Hayel, what's your thought?
For us at Malheur County, we are still having drop to paper death certificates, which is fine. It's just sometimes an issue for the doctors not signing until 10 weeks after the death. But and we would love to have it fully electronic. That would be awesome. But the problem is our providers are not signing up for having access to overs and sign electronically and just fill that out. So that's like an issue for us where our providers are just not signing up or they don't have the time, or I don't know. It would be awesome if it was fully electronic, but that's the problem we're running into. And sometimes it's not even we're a border county, so we're right next to Idaho. So sometimes our doctors are not in Oregon, they're in Idaho, and then they don't know the process that the death occurred here in Oregon, you're in Idaho, but you can still sign up for overs and help us out in that process, versus the certificate has to be driven to Nampa or Boise or whatever for 45 minutes or mailed, and then we have to wait for that, and then it's happened where it gets lost. And so that's the issue, or providers not signing up for the overs and being a border county where it makes things difficult.
Yeah. Thank you, Hayel. Sarah?
Yeah, I've noticed since I started, I've been here about 10 years, the doctors are signing up for overs, just it's very slow. A lot of the old school doctors they're just kind of waiting until they retire, and the new doctors they bring them on, they automatically sign them up. So there are a lot fewer paper death certificates that we do than when I started, for sure. If there was some sort of, I know when the OVER system was implemented before I even started here, the funeral home was told, well, within 2 to 3 years, everyone will be on it. Well, obviously, that's still not happened. So yeah, some accountability just to make sure everybody's on it, using it, because it works so much better than paper death certificates. And then I just wanted to touch on what Ginger said about the fetal death certificates. They're not actual death certificates. When there's a fetal demise, the hospital fills out paperwork, and I think that piece of paper is what you have to hold on to. But it's not considered a human life, so we don't issue a death certificate for that. So I don't think that is a vital record per se. I think that's something else. I don't know exactly the system, but there is a distinction between those two. So just to clear that up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Jennifer?
Yeah, so I'll address the fetal death stuff later, but I think that, part of it is that the fully electronic for death, again, law accountability, but it's also varies geographically. So maybe focusing on certain areas and partnering with the state, and the state partnering with the funeral home, and actually like going and doing like a trip to the medical certifiers and do a kind of, a special visit. So doing a little kind of, and it also follows up a little bit with the accountability piece that Derek was talking about, but maybe even doing more geographic partnering and site visits to encourage that.
Yep. Thank you.
And then I'll obviously, because let's put on the parking lot clarification on fetal deaths. So,
Okay.
but we
Yep.
won't go into that. So,
Thank you. And thank you for my spelling challenge of the day, spelling fetal. So the next question, thank you for all of that. So the number 7, for all records to be fully electronic with access to old and new records in an effective, functional, and modernized system. This electronic system needs to be interoperable. I want to leave that second one, actually. We were just kind of talking about access to fully electronic. I want to know if that number 7, for all records to be fully electronic with access to all old and new records in an effective, functional, and modernized system. Are there other things than what we were just talking about in terms of the needs around electronic records and having everybody signed up and having people? Yeah, Jennifer, what else?
yeah. So the key word here is old. So right now it's the older records. So this is having a fully electronic system that's modern, means all the records back to 1903 being fully electronic. Right now, there's only fully electronic starting at certain times. So that, to me, that to be creative is, and it's not too creative. It's setting up a project. And again, these are the records that are at the state. So this would be focusing on a state project, have the resources and funding to get everything scanned, all the microfilm off. So OVERS has all the records from day one. And that has been on the project list for a very long time, but haven't had the time or the resources to do it. So it's like actually initiating a project, getting a project team, finding a contractor, and getting it done.
Thanks, Jennifer. Other comments about fully electronic with access to all old and new records in an effective, functional, and modernized system? Other comments about that part? Okay, Shauna, I'm not going to call you by your daughter's name. Go ahead.
Good memory. I have a really remedial question. When we talk about fully electronic, we mean that in your offices, you're able to retrieve those electronically and that the process for creating a record is submitted electronically. Because what I'm used to is like a paper, but I guess it would be like a certified death certificate. So you'd still be able to order those. It's just the repository and the creation of them happens electronically. Because I need physical paper death certificates for a lot of
Yeah.
what I do.
Right. And
Okay.
so the idea is to have all of the submission of the records fully electronic. Currently we have records that are still paper records. They're not even in the OVERS system, or
Gotcha.
they're off a microfilm. But one of our fully electronic ideas that's happening, and that's very modern, is to offer a certified copy that's been electronically certified. So then you can email it back and forth with people. We could send an email with the record. So there's this kind of electronic certification idea and not have to move paper around. But you still could have the option. So that's really happening in the future of how do you have a certificate that you issue that's an electronic certificate that is actually certified by the
I think
state.
that's a really excellent idea. And I appreciate that that component of it could be a longer term plan, but it would make sense to be part of the sequence. And I can see the learning curve not being terrible. You know, it's usually financial institutions or title companies that I provide these to.
Mhm.
And they scan them and make them electronic anyway.
Yep, I
They
know.
don't usually retain it.
Mhm.
So I don't think the learning curve would be too steep,
Mhm.
and that sure would be great. But yeah, we definitely deal with paper. They need to see the and feel the seal, but they don't actually keep it or
Yeah.
want it. They make it electronic too.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's-
that would be really slick. Obviously, it requires funding and a lot of effort, but it sure would be a goal.
Thanks, Shauna. Yeah, it's a great option to put on the list. I want to look at 7A. The electronic system needs to be interoperable, meaning accessible to all interconnected systems. So interoperable means if you're on one platform, you can access something that's on another platform. You don't have to all be on the same platform to access the information. Any thoughts or comments about the interoperability need? Any comments about that one? Ginger? And
Just as a thought, we're talking about being able to access different things. When people come in and they need to prove eligibility. And so like I had a grandchild come in and they're not going to have their parents' birth certificates. But is that something when you mean interoperability? I mean, I suppose they need to produce that themselves. But as a way for me to verify that they have brought in a record, or like a marriage license, when a female has changed her name and she needs to produce her birth certificate and her marriage license to get one of her parents' death certificates. Is that what you're referring to as interoperable, being able to view those other documentations electronically?
interoperability more has to do with how the computer languages talk to each other, the computer databases talk to each other.
Okay.
It's usually what interoperability means.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's a good example, Ginger. Yeah. Jennifer?
Would you like me to respond? Oh, am I next?
Yep.
I think, yeah, that I was just going to clarify, Lana, interoperability is between the different systems.
Yep.
So that's looking at, the electronic health record systems, the medical examiner systems, the funeral home systems. So, that's going to cut down and improve the timeliness as well. But I think that your comment, Ginger, about how the counties can have the access to the system to do electronic verification of vital records within the state. Yeah, okay.
Thanks. Hayel?
I was just gonna say that it sounds really good, like that would be awesome. But here at the health department, we recently had a scare where it was like a security breach of our systems, our computer systems. We lost, because of that almost breach, we lost our internet for 2 days. So now we're all kind of wary of like talking amongst any other computers. And now our systems are there's so many firewalls and security systems that even accessing vital records like overs is an issue for me. And I'm just, it's just overs. I'm here in the office. So I just kind of wonder what kind of issues trying to talk to different systems or computers or anything like that would arise. And if little health departments like us would have that kind of capability, because we don't have money and we don't have our IS team it's being extra careful. And so I don't even know if that would benefit us in any way, shape, or form, because it would just, right now, everything's getting blocked. I don't know if in the future we have better security and not block everything, but for us little health departments, it could really be an issue.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Lucy, Shauna, is your hand still up from before, or is this a new hand?
It was still up from before.
Okay,
I will
okay.
put it down. Thank you.
No, that's fine. I just didn't want to be skipping you if you had. Okay, so let's look at number 8, sustainable funding, a sustainable and equitable funding to support the system. What are your ideas about sustainable and equitable funding to support the system? What are some options for that? Jennifer.
I think that we kind of touched on this a little bit last time, but of course, looking at fees, increasing fees, which that goes to the customer, suggesting items for how do we, again, it's the sharing and sustainable funding for the system as a whole. If we want to do modernization, do we go and ask the legislature for a big chunk of change, to be blunt, to modernize the system? But I think we also need to be examining creative ways to share the maintenance of the system. And one of the things to acknowledge is that the state maintains the system and the state provides all the resources for the counties, and the counties don't actually support the system. And so we need to think about how do we have, all of us help support the system.
Thank you. Other ideas about ways to address the need for sustainable funding to support the system? Can we make it a requirement for them to have to sign up if they're practicing? Oh, that's an old chat, sorry. Okay. Anything else about sustainable funding? The next, number 9, is to be adequately staffed with adequately trained employees with adequate classifications. Ideas about how to address that need. Adequately staffed, adequately trained. What are your thoughts? Hayel? Oops, Hayel, I think you're still muted.
Oh, sorry. There. So yeah, for us at the county level, all our funding comes from, some of our funding comes from the county, from admin. And I know right now they're not going to hire anymore. They don't want to pay us anymore. So it's hard to retain people or train them. Like, it's really, really hard. And so I don't know if the state could maybe advocate for us, put in a word like, listen, this is extra training that we're needing from your current employees. Like right now, it used to be just me and Peggy doing vital records, but we are training more people, but it's added to other duties as well. And a lot of people don't want to take on an extra job duty. That I love vital stats, but it can be difficult at first. Like to learn it can be really hard. So it scares a lot of people. So maybe if we had a little push from like, or a little good word from the state towards like county judges or commissioners to like, hey, listen, can you, I don't know, bump the pay or give them a little incentive, like maybe
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Thank you, Hayal. That's a great idea. Okay, then easier access to overs with longer timeout on the login. That was a really specific situation. Ideas or options around that?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty this is just looking at the IT requirements. There's some requirements at the state to see how much we could actually increase the time, but then it doesn't impact production in the sense of, if you have too many systems open and you continue to have them open, it causes things to slow down. So that's why there's a minimum amount of time. And so what's like the standard is for the state to see if we can increase it.
Yeah,
But there may be a standard that they require.
right. So that might be get some more information about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, better oversight and accountability, following laws and procedures. Any ideas about how to address the need for better oversight and accountability?
I like Jennifer's idea about having what we used to call in the old days a dog and pony show. You basically have a couple of representatives go out, schedule a meeting with, partners and, whether, folks in the medical field, funeral homes, anything that touches on vital records, just seeing a human being, even if it's virtual, and answering their questions and providing information for them, so it's not such a ugh kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Ginger?
So Derek was talking about the triennial reviews, and those are really awesome. But like he said, they're far and few between.
Oops.